Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving straight into, well, a challenge that I think anyone involved in organizational growth knows well. How do you actually help people grow effectively?
Yeah, it's a big one. And we've got some really interesting material today looking at this through a pretty cool metaphor, the freight mindset versus the moped mindset.
Exactly. So think standardized, large-scale programs, that's your freight train, versus the more agile, personalized, quick response learning the moped.
And the sources we're looking at really dig into how these apply or sometimes misapply in today's work environment.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that. When does the big freight approach make sense? Scale, consistency,
Right.
and when do you really need that nimble, tailored moped approach? The goal is to help you figure out how to get that balance right.
Because you want to avoid that rigid one-size-fits-all trap, but also you don't want total chaos with everyone just doing their own thing randomly.
Yeah, disconnected efforts don't really help the bigger picture. It's about meaningful growth, both for the person and, well, for the organization.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's break down this freight mindset first. What are we talking about here? What does it look like?
So the freight mindset, as our sources describe it, it's all about those standardized large-scale things. Think big certification programs rolled out to everyone.
Right, or like mandatory compliance training.
Exactly. Or company-wide onboarding for new hires.
Yeah.
The idea is consistency, getting a large group of people to the same baseline understanding. You move them all together.
And you can see the appeal, can't you?
Yeah.
Scale, consistency. The sources even point to history.
Yeah, they do. I mean, think about rolling out new regulations or maybe a huge new software system across the company. That standardized approach works, right? It ensures everyone gets the same core message.
It guarantees that base level of knowledge.
Absolutely. And, the sources mention things like the Industrial Revolution needing some standardization or how armies train for cohesion. It's effective when you need that synchronized large-scale movement.
And onboarding, you mentioned onboarding, getting everyone aligned on culture.
For sure, especially with large groups. But, and this is the key point in the material, the problems start when you try to use only that approach for every kind of growth.
Why is that? What's the downside?
Well, I mean, people's growth needs just aren't identical, are they? And learning isn't always a straight line. So if you force everyone onto the same freight train, you can end up stifling people with really specific needs or ambitions.
Like the innovators, the ones pushing boundaries.
Exactly. They might get bogged down in mandatory stuff that's not relevant to them. It can smother that curiosity, that, agility that companies say they want.
So using the freight train for a very specific, urgent delivery to a small team, it just doesn't fit. It could even slow things down.
Or derail them completely, yeah. It's the wrong vehicle for that particular journey.
Okay, so that's the freight. Let's flip to the other side then, the moped mindset. What defines that?
The moped is, well, pretty much the opposite. It's quick, it's nimble, it's responsive, tailored to the individual. You deploy it exactly when and where it's needed.
Can you give an example, like in a work context?
Sure. So imagine someone on your team suddenly needs to get up to speed on, say, a specific machine learning technique for a new project right now.
Okay.
They probably don't need a 6-month general data science course. A moped solution could be like a focused online workshop or maybe getting paired with a mentor who knows that technique really well. Short, sharp, targeted.
Much more responsive then. What are the big advantages the sources highlight?
Well, it's great for skills that are changing really fast. And for when your workforce has really diverse, maybe even unpredictable needs, where you just can't wait for a big formal program to be designed and rolled out.
The learning has to happen now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sources suggest this is often how, startups can sometimes outmaneuver bigger companies. They're more agile and upskilling, like those explorers finding their way, learning as they go.
But just like having loads of delivery scooters without any coordination could be messy. There are risks with the moped approach too, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely. If it's completely uncoordinated, you risk duplication. Like
Yeah.
5 people might be off trying to learn the same thing separately.
Wasting effort.
Yeah. And you could end up with skill gaps if certain important areas just aren't being picked up by anyone. Plus, individuals might learn things that aren't really connected to the bigger company goals.
So lots of individual activity, maybe zipping around like mopeds, but it's fragmented. The overall impact gets lost.
Exactly. It can be hard to see the collective progress if it's not guided by some kind of vision.
Okay, so we have freight, we have mopeds, but the article suggests the real issue isn't just picking one. It's something more fundamental.
Yeah, the core problem they identify is often this misdiagnosis before you even choose the method. Organizations aren't properly figuring out what kind of growth journey is actually needed in the first place.
And when you get that diagnosis wrong, what happens?
Well, you get those bad fits we talked about. Forcing a big, slow, free solution onto a team that needs speed, which just crushes morale and momentum.
Or the opposite, throwing lots of individual moped options at a situation that really needs a solid shared foundation.
Exactly. Which leads to that fragmentation and lack of coherence.
And this isn't just inefficient, it sounds expensive. The sources mention billions wasted on learning that feels like, what was it, riding stationary bikes?
Yeah, precisely that. People are busy, they're doing the training, but it's not actually taking them or the organization anywhere meaningful.
And people notice that, don't they?
Oh, definitely. Workers know when development feels performative or when the timing's off or it's just not relevant. And that leads to disengagement.
Which ultimately hurts the company's ability to adapt.
Absolutely. The sources use this powerful ecosystem analogy. Like, in nature, species that don't adapt intelligently just don't make it, regardless of past strength. It's the same for organizations.
Okay, so if it's not about freight versus mopeds, what's the smarter way forward? How do organizations get better at this?
The key shift really is moving from either to when,
Mm-hmm.
developing the wisdom, as the sources put it, to know when freight is right and when a moped is the better choice for a specific growth journey.
So it's about diagnosing the need accurately first.
Exactly. It's about building what they call an intelligently adaptive learning ecosystem. They use this image of a rainforest.
Right.
Yeah, like you have the massive stable trees, that's your foundational freight stuff. But you also have the fast-growing vines, the agile creatures, those are the mopeds, the personalized learning. Both are needed for a healthy ecosystem.
I like that. So it's not just about doing more training or faster training. It's about moving right, as they say, delivering the right growth effectively.
Precisely. It's about the impact, not just the activity.
All right, so the sources lay out 5 key principles for actually building this smarter approach. Let's walk through them. Principle number 1, map the terrain before dispatching vehicles.
Okay, yeah, this is fundamental. It just means you have to deeply understand the nature of the growth needed before you decide on freight or mopeds. It's all about that diagnosis up front.
And there are guiding questions to help with that.
Yep. Things like, is this skill needed by, like, almost everyone, pretty universal? Then maybe freight's the way to go.
Okay.
Or is it a really niche thing,
Hmm.
urgent for just a small group? That sounds more like a moped situation.
Makes sense. What else?
Predictability. Is the timeline pretty fixed? Is the skill stable? That might lean towards freight, a structured program. Or is it all changing super fast? Fluid. That screams moped. Agility.
So you ask these questions to avoid those mismatches. The articles even mention a growth journey diagnosis framework. What would that involve?
Basically getting specific, like what percentage of people actually need this skill? How long do we think this skill will stay relevant? How much freedom should individuals have in how they learn it?
So formalizing that diagnostic step.
Exactly. Because without that diagnosis, you're just guessing, and you'll probably keep picking the wrong vehicle.
Got it. Okay, principle number 2. Design a dual-lane growth highway. Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, this one's about building a system that supports both. You need a lane for the big standardized stuff, the freight lane, and right alongside it, a moped lane for the personalized on-demand stuff.
Both running in parallel, not separate systems.
Crucially, yes.
Yeah.
Parallel. And people need to be able to switch lanes easily as their needs change.
Mhm.
The sources talk about growth portals.
Like a single entry point.
Sort of, yeah. One place you can go to find everything. The mandatory programs, all organized, it's your freight schedule. But also easily discoverable micro-learning, maybe mentor connections, stretch projects. You can grab those are your mopeds, ready to go.
So making it just as easy to hop on a moped as it is to board the freight truck.
That's the idea. Infrastructure matters. You need both structure and flexibility, easily accessible.
Okay. Principle 3 brings managers into the picture. Equip managers as growth traffic controllers. How does their role change?
This is a big shift. It's moving managers from just overseeing tasks to being active facilitators of their team's growth journeys.
So what are they actually doing as traffic controllers?
They need to be able to spot the need. Is this a freight situation or a moped situation for my team member? Then guide them to the right lane, the right resources on that dual highway. And really importantly, clear the path. Remove roadblocks to learning.
And how do they do that effectively? Is there a practical tip?
Yeah, the article suggests something like quarterly growth route check-ins, Regular conversations focus specifically on development.
What would you discuss in those check-ins?
Things like, okay, what skills are you actively building right now? Does the current approach, structured or more nimble, feel right for that? What do you need from me or the organization to, navigate faster and more effectively?
So making managers partners in the process.
Absolutely. Active participants, not just signing off on training requests.
Makes sense. Okay, principle 4. Measure the right metrics, not just completion rates. This sounds like a shakeup for traditional L&D.
It definitely is. The point is just tracking who finished a course. Well, it doesn't tell you much about actual impact or growth.
So what should we be measuring instead?
Things that show trajectory and adaptability. Like
Yeah.
how fast are people actually accessing and applying the skills they need? Are people successfully moving into new roles that the company needs filled? Are they developing the right strategic competencies?
Okay, more outcome focused.
Yeah, and another interesting one. How many growth journeys are initiated by the workers themselves? That's a great sign of a healthy moped culture of engagement.
And the articles talk about growth journey analytics for this. What data would that track?
It goes beyond completions. You track things like time to skill, how long, from identifying a need to actually acquiring the skill.
Yeah.
Maybe growth velocity, the rate people are learning over time.
Mhm.
And that ratio, how much learning is employee-driven versus company-mandated.
So seeing the whole network of paths, not just the main road.
Exactly. A much richer picture of how learning is actually happening and making a difference.
Right. Last one, principle 5. Celebrate mobility, not just destination. What's the core idea here?
It's about shifting what we recognize and reward. Traditionally, maybe we focus a lot on getting the certificate, the qualification, the final destination.
Yeah, the piece of paper.
Right. This principle says we should also celebrate the journey, the mobility. Things like the speed someone learns and adapts, their versatility in picking up different skills, even just the courage to start a new learning path.
Valuing the process, not just the end point.
Yeah.
How do you make that visible?
The sources suggest things like growth mobility days. Basically, opportunities to showcase and celebrate people who are moving fast, jumping into new skill areas, maybe doing cool cross-functional work through learning.
So shining a light on the movers and adapters.
Exactly. It's like that analogy they used about ancient markets valuing the trustworthiness of the delivery journey, not just the final product. Honor the travel, not just the arrival.
I like that, honoring the travel. So wrapping this all up, it really isn't about freight or mopeds being inherently better.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
They're both just tools, right? Tools for delivering human potential, as the sources put it. The real skill is knowing which tool to use when. It's about that wisdom, that intelligent adaptation.
And if organizations can nail this, get this adaptive ecosystem working.
Well, the vision painted is pretty powerful, creating these thriving ecosystems of worker ones, people who are skilled, sure, but also resilient, compassionate, hungry to grow, and committed to collective success.
That's a compelling picture for the future of work. And leadership plays a key role in getting there.
Absolutely. The article suggests real leadership isn't just about scale anymore. It's about moving the right dreams, the right potential to the right places at the right speed, skillful guidance.
And it leaves us and you listening with a final thought to chew on, doesn't it?
It does. It challenges us all to maybe shift how we measure success. Instead of just asking, did we grow? Maybe ask, how beautifully did we travel together?
A much more human way to think about development. Fantastic stuff.